Dude, you are getting well. Dude, what's up?
How are we doing?
So good to have you here. Dudes, thank you for being here, whether you're listening in the past, present, or future. Please let us know what's resonating. Don't forget to subscribe. And without further ado, here's my dear friend, spiritual brother, inspiration, coach, and he goes by the name Ben. He has a lovely name. How you doing today, Ben?
Well, you know, I just realized we got two Bens together in the same place. I'm doing great. Life is good.
Yeah.
Good.
Maybe
Yeah.
pump. We got some Ben magics going
Are, man.
on. A Ben
Are.
sandwich about to hit y'all.
So how are we, man? Let's dive right in. So we were talking about coffee, and I'm getting ready to pour mine, and
Yeah.
Ben talking about his. And what we were talking about is why sometimes I choose the little comfortable things in the present versus the things long term and how they stack up. So, like
Mm.
where I am in the world, it's noon and I've already had a cup of coffee and a bowl of ice cream and nothing else. And I'm on cup of coffee number two.
Some
And then,
people would be proud of you right now. Some of the listeners, I think, are proud. Some are probably saying, okay, I see room for improvement.
yeah,
How are you
yeah.
feeling?
And so what's so interesting though is if you look at my let's just say working out. I think I've worked out 6 days in a row, or 6 days, 6 out of 7 days of the week. I take a day off now for the last 3, 4 weeks in a row. And even before that, like I have no problem getting to the gym. So
That's
like
amazing.
certain things health wise, like I'm all in. I've meditated 6 out of 7 days in a row. I've prayed every single day for the last probably 2.5 years. Like there's certain things that I'm so on, but then there's other things like right now where it's like, okay, I could make some eggs, or I could eat a bowl of mint chocolate chip Moose Tracks ice cream, and I'm like, that's like so
That's why
tough.
we're friends. That's why
I'm
we're
going
friends. My
ice
goodness.
ice cream. But it's like it's interesting when you realize like how committed you are to health in some ways,
Hmm.
and then there's areas where you just let stuff slide.
Yeah, I think that's a great reflection. Um, I mean, I resonate with that. So thank you for being so honest. That's one of the reasons I really love you and I enjoy speaking to you. So you always keep it real. And we were talking about so much has come up in this podcast too about all the awareness that we have, intelligence in our heart and our gut that we have not really developed in this Western society per se. We've developed a lot in the brain, and that's all great. One of the things you mentioned, as we're in the pre-show notes, were vulnerability versus responsibility,
Oh, I did.
and yeah,
Dang, pretty
yeah,
good.
it's all
Whatever.
good. So I'm gonna bring that to you back on the plate today.
Yeah.
So you're already being vulnerable by leading with your truth, saying where you're out of integrity with your body, and where you are in integrity with your body, and with your mind and your wellness. Like the routines you're doing, that already shows me how you're operating, functioning through so much, because it sounds like you've literally trained your body to be able to handle some of this, whatever you're going through. So let's talk about it. So
Yeah.
why vulnerability?
Can I get back to what we were gonna say with some other stuff real quick?
Sure, man.
I love
Go
it.
wherever
Okay.
you want.
Because you said out of integrity, and
I
I
did add
per-
that in the space. You didn't use
I
that word.
I did it, and I just want to be clear real
As
quick.
I as it came out of my mouth, I was
Yeah,
like, "Well, he actually
it's
didn't
all
say
right,
that."
but
Thank you for calling it out.
you're good. It's what is integrity, and that's the thing that I think you get to look at, or that I've been looking at, is what is integrity in certain areas of life, and where do I not even write down or know what integrity is? And like what I mean by that is, today is June 3rd, we'll say 2nd, we'll say second. Second feels good. Yesterday was the first, and I had a client who was just like jumping up and down, 10 out of 10 excited because it was the first of the month. That's their favorite day of the month. They plan out their month. And a framework that I really like, that I kind of stole from someone who's like a millionaire, is rather than looking into the month and deciding what's important to you, what do you want to see happen, looking back on the month from a place of celebration, like the last day of the month, really celebrate and look back on it. And what do you want to be celebrating? And how can you make like or something exciting and actually celebrate yourself? And what things do you want to celebrate? And so for me, for the first time in a long time, I just sat down and said, like, what do I actually want to be celebrating 30 days from now that I did? And like having that level of intention now allows me to see where I'm out of integrity. But I think about it because, and this will translate into what we're talking about with responsibility, is so many people who are raised without a dad or who don't have a strong connection to their dad or fatherhood, they really resist things like structure, authority, accountability, tracking things, understanding numbers. And I say that because that's one big thing that I've had to work on as I've healed and gotten better with my relationship with my dad, is realizing like I didn't have a budget until 7 months ago. And it's like, to be an adult and to not know where your money's going and to not, but it's like, why was I so resistant to a structure that told me the truth of what was happening? And then even now with my goals for the month, one of my goals is to be 182 pounds and just ripped. And the number doesn't matter much to y'all. All that matters right now, I'm 185 and I'm slightly fluffy, slightly. And so it like the idea is though, is that once you like actually are willing to define what integrity or what a win or what success or whatever looks like to you, then you can actually go after it. And I think so many of us avoid looking at things, the honest truth, tracking things, and just being clear about what it is we want.
That is a truth bomb if I've heard it today. That was, I think, on point, man. It resonated with me 100%. I was, could I share a reflection? I'm going to share a reflection.
100%.
As an actor, you know, that's one thing I said was missing. I went to like one of the greatest acting schools in the country. I like keep a degree around to remind me that I paid a ton of money and worked my butt off, but it didn't actually mean anything. And we got zero business training in one of the best acting schools in the world. So you come out of it and you're like, you can be a great actor, but how are you actually going to survive in the world? My mom taught me to balance a checkbook, God bless her, when I was a teenager. But other than that, I didn't know anything. So with a constant fluctuating income, no stable job, even when I had steady jobs, they were like bartending, they were still fluctuating. You know, I really relate with not having any relationship. Like I was so scared to get real with money. I didn't know how to get real with money. I felt so powerless. And one amazing access that I want to really share is the Actors Fund. It's a nonprofit in New York City, probably across the nation now. They actually provide free resources for artists of all kinds. So performing artists, creative artists, visual artists. And I took classes on budgeting and money, and there was one there about relationships to money, and we had to interview our parents and about them and their grandparents and their relationships to money. And it was the only money class I've ever been in where everyone wept. And we all saw, like, you know, my rich friends had money. They like understood something about money. If their parents were wealthy, they understood something about money that I didn't understand. And my parents taught me that money's not important, that you should do what you love instead of pursuing money. You know, spend it. Like my dad was like, spend it if you got it. My mom's like, hold on to everything. You know, I was even a magician paying my own car insurance, gas, car payments, and something else in high school. And my mom was still begging me to like get a job at the grocery store bagging groceries, which would have been like a quarter of the amount of money, but secure. right?
Yeah.
So there was that push and pull, and it really was confusing. So for me, it was like, thank God for the Actors Fund, but I still had to do the work myself. I had to track every single penny, and it was terrifying. But I realized I didn't have to do it alone. So that was really nice to ask for help. How did you break free from this? Like, if you, like, what was the moment that you were like, all right, you didn't even say break free, but what was the moment that what had you face this?
That's a great question.
And why do
So
you think you were avoiding it in the past?
why was I avoiding it? Growing up, there was a lot of conversations around money, and I would also say fights around money. And I just started to associate talking about money with a fight, or someone's going to be in trouble, someone's going to get yelled at. And so I think for me, like I just decided and internally that avoiding money was better because at least it keeps the peace.
Hmm.
As I got older, um, two things. One, I believe in God. So I believe that He poked me with the right things at the right time to really make me change. Because I don't know if I would have ever started budgeting without that, without Him. Because, like, for me, there's always been this story of like, I can't do it. I'm not smart enough. I never learned how. I'm not good enough. Like, like, it's too complicated. I'm not going to be able to figure it out. Like, it was like such a mental block in my mind that I can't do it, that I like, even when I tried, like, it was every time I would sit down and do anything related to budgeting, I would just feel incredibly stupid. And there would be so much shame around it. And I'm good at numbers. Like, I'm really good at math. Like, if you started throwing out math problems right now, I would answer them all and not stutter, not have any problem. Like, I'm good. But when
That's
you
so
put the
funny. It's the same
label
here.
on it, then it started to take on a different meaning to me, and I started feeling really dumb. And so, like, that was one thing. Another thing is,
Thank you for saying that, by the way. Like how you're actually feeling. I need to reflect this because I don't feel like enough people I want to reflect. I don't feel like enough people are sharing how they actually feel. And by you saying like, as a man in this world today, I felt dumb at this point. Like
yeah,
you're actually sharing your feelings. I really hope that, this is allowing more people to know that they can just be honest and be real. Because the more honest you are and some of the people in our circle that I really respect, it's actually had me like respect them more and want to be in their circles more. So I just want to say again, I really appreciate that about you.
I appreciate that too.
Already
Thank you.
leading with vulnerability, man. And I feel like it's responsible too.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that there's this belief that you can get from A to B without looking at the really painful, ugly, emotional, hurtful stuff that's in the middle. And I don't see that anywhere. Like, I don't see anywhere where you actually get growth without really, really, really getting honest about what's there.
Hmm.
And some of the most like what you might think is insignificant, what I might think is insignificant, or that's stupid, or why does that bother you, or like these things. And I see it trivialized sometimes, but anywhere that I see growth, that I see healing, that I see people actually making a change, I also see a radical level of honesty around what's going on. And I think like I want to tie this in because this has been one thing that's been rocking my world is like I think I always believed that like I had to get things right, especially with God. Like I had to have this relationship where I was like together and this certain thing. And I don't really think my relationship with God or myself has taken off until I started having some moments where I just started like actually yelling at God and saying like, I'm so angry about this. I didn't ask for this life. I didn't ask to have this thing happen when I grew up.
Hmm.
um, to be in this situation or for this to be my insecurity. Like, I really wish I didn't struggle with this. I'm so angry at who I am sometimes, and that I still struggle with the same things for like 15, 20 years. And it wasn't until I really started like yelling at God and being so 100% honest, and even getting that level of honest with myself, that I like realized the level of pain and hurt and disappointment that I was trying to sweep under the rug. And like, I didn't really start seeing certain level of results until I was willing to get that real. And I think that's one of the biggest like things that I see is like, because I just got off a call earlier where I was coaching some people, and I was like, you got to be so honest. You got to be so honest. Like, that's what leadership is the courage to go first. And I think sometimes just to say, like, yes, I've done all these things and I'm successful in these ways according to these people. And there's still times where I go out and I get a whole gallon of ice cream and I eat it by myself before dinner. And then I just sit there and I feel like a bowling ball and I waddle around the house for like an hour in like subtle guilt. Why did I do that? And it's both. It's both. Like, it's both. You can be incredibly successful and accomplished and do these things and help people make 20, 30, 40,000 more in a month, and like coach people and do these amazing things and help people heal relationships that they never thought they could heal. And you can still feel not enough in the same day.
Mm. Thank you for saying that and for that reminder.
Yeah.
So, has there been times in your life when you felt like not enough, and how did you access being able to be okay about it?
Never. I've always felt 100% confident, 100% certain, 100%.
Oh, good. That makes two of us.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, one, anxiety, especially working in as a life coach, because like a lot of what people pay me for is to be incredibly courageous and to lead them through some really scary and uncertain situations,
Mm.
and tell people like, hey, I'm showing up even though I'm anxious. I'm not showing up anxiety free. And or this last year, there is so many people, such a collective buzz, so much noise, so much stimulation coming in, that my relationship with anxiety, I probably like instantly, my baseline for anxiety like raised maybe 30%. Like, I just always felt anxiety. And this was something I wasn't used to living in the mountains of Colorado or in a small town outside of Lake Tahoe. Like, I just felt so much peace there naturally. And you heard quiet and the birds and things like that. And so I think this whole last year has really been a battle of like, I feel large amounts of anxiety and I feel not enough because of that. And I'm still going to show up and I'm still going to do the thing and I'm still going to go on the date and I'm still going to ask this person out and I'm still going to get on the call with someone who's more successful than me, but still show them, hey, I can help you in these ways. And it's been like a an acceptance that I'm not enough in certain areas. And even I don't like that phrasing, that I feel not enough in certain areas,
Mm.
am enough overall as a person. And that like my feelings don't define who I am.
Amen.
Yeah.
Did you have any examples growing up of your parents? Were they helpful in nurturing this relationship with yourself, this acceptance, or what was it like then, and how did you transform it to now?
Yeah. So a thing that's interesting to me is that you can remember things, take old memories and remember them a new way with new perspective.
Hmm.
The way that I used to see my parents versus the way that I see my parents now has changed a lot. And I think there's such a deeper level of gratitude for the courage that they showed to do certain things. So I think, like, like
That's
my parents,
beautiful. Can you say more about that?
yeah, is
Yeah.
there's such a difference between looking at my mom and my dad compared to what I thought I wanted as a mom or a dad, or what I thought I wanted as a family unit. Like as a little kid, I wanted us to all be together. That was my goal. And my parents got separated twice, and like no judgment. Like I get it. Relationships are hard.
Mm.
I'm someone who's gonna sit here and tell you like, oh, it's gonna be easy, or you should have found a way to work it out. Like they're hard. Um, they,
Truth.
and so there's no like sadness or anything there. There's more just there's more the ability to step back and see them as the entirety of the arc of their life versus the role that I wanted them to play or that they played for me. So there's like, who did I want my mom and dad to be, even while they were going through separation and stuff, and maybe emotionally it was hard on them. Like, who did I want them to be? Like, obviously, I wanted them to be someone that showed up to my sporting events and that was on time and that remembered to pick me up from school and didn't leave me there for 2 or 3 hours sometimes. Like, obviously, I wanted that,
Can we have
and
the same parents?
that's not always so. But it's like I love them, and sometimes things happen, and I think it's just like I've learned to show myself a lot more grace, and in doing so, I've learned to show them more grace, and I think there's also like just who are they as people, and like both of them did a lot of things in life that way us kids don't have to, and I didn't realize that at the time. Like, I just look at who my parents were when they started life in their marriage versus who they are now. And they've both grown so much, whether it be financially, career wise, going back to school and getting a master's degree as a mom, like just like a lot of things. Like my dad, like financially, like figuring out a lot of things. Like they both grew so much. And so for me, it's so much less now like, like I wish my childhood would have been this, and it's so much more just a gratitude of they probably, I don't want to say probably, but like this is my judgment, is that they gave me a way better childhood than maybe they received. And I'm not saying their childhood was bad, but they did everything in their power to make sure that like the things that maybe were hard about their childhood weren't hard about mine. And so even though there were still a lot of really tough parts of my childhood, maybe it wasn't some of the same ones that they had to go through. And so it's like just a deeper level of appreciation and gratitude and grace that I have for them, compared to what I used to see 10 or 15 years ago.
And what do you think made the difference? How were you able to see them in this new way? What was the access to that?
Um, like I said, a lot of things for me go back to God and understanding love, and understanding like that love is, there's one thing the Bible says that love is, and it's love keeps no record of wrongs. And it's like when you're looking back at relationships and you're looking at all these things that people messed up, and you're like keeping these tally marks. I had a client message me this morning, and he said something that like I too struggle with, and it's that the closer I get to someone, the more I look for things that they're doing wrong or that I don't like about them. That way I can push them away before they push me away, or that way I can reject them before they reject me. And so it's like, it's a natural understanding that, like, I'm going to look for things that are wrong in others. I'm going to look for reasons to be critical. And that, like, daily, I have to be intentional about not doing that and combating that, and starting to tell other stories about that person and going out of my way to encourage or to point out things they're doing well or things that I like about them or things that I appreciate. And what used to be a weakness of mine, I would say now is a strength, maybe on the other end, where it's like a lot of people tell me that I'm incredibly encouraging. And it's not like a trait, it's something that I have to practice daily. And so, like, I would just say it's like understanding that your temptation is going to be critical, to find fault in others, to put others down. Like that's natural. That's going to come so easy anytime you get hurt. But like telling others, complimenting others, telling others things you appreciate about them, encouraging others, like that's work, that's practice, and you got to do that daily to keep a relationship strong.
I think that's a great point and a great reminder. How do you practice doing that daily with yourself? That
That's
relationship with yourself.
I love that. So there's a couple different things. And I think one is like an awareness that I'm going to be hard on myself unless I intentionally look for things that I'm doing well. And so, like, because I know that's my baseline, I know that I have to be intentional with stopping and looking for things that I'm doing well. And so, like, I still have alarms on my phone that I set, that just every day when that alarm goes off at different times throughout the day, I stop and I do something with it. Like for now, I just stop and I sit and I'm grateful in that moment for the different parts of my day, for things that are going well, for things about myself, whatever. And so, like, I think about sometimes you have to set up structures or systems in your life to keep you accountable or keep you going in the right direction. And sometimes that can be friendships. Like I look at different friendships where I'm like, okay, I'm going to be friends with this person because they're encouraging. I love this person, but sometimes they're critical and they talk crap about people. So I'm going to hang out with them less. And so part of it is like how I choose my friends. Another part of it is systems that I set up like that. Sometimes I journal. Sometimes I sit down and think of things that I'm proud of about myself. I intentionally make celebration a part of my life. Like all my groups that I coach or lead, like celebration is a big part of it. Any group that I lead that's for fun or volunteer, celebration is a big part of that as well. And so, like, I probably intentionally celebrate myself, I don't know, 50 times a week. And like, it just
Nice.
times a day here and there. And even with that, I still don't know if I celebrate myself at a level that's enough to combat being hard on myself. It's still something that I'm working on. It's still something that I'll catch myself feeling down and then I'll stop and be like, oh, yeah, remember to celebrate yourself. Look at all the things you're doing well. Look at like where you were a year ago. That's another thing is if you're comparing yourself to others or you're comparing yourself to where you think you should be, you're going to feel like crap. If you're comparing yourself a lot of times to where you were 1, 3, 5 years ago, it puts things into perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good point. Thank you for sharing all those ways you practice as well. That's really cool. I love that. And I heard, in friendships too, I'm kind of going through that right now with some of my closest friends, and it's showing up in all my friendships suddenly, right? You sort of see something, you can't always unsee it, but it's this, well, why are we hanging out? And what am I getting out of this? And are we putting in, like, am I putting this in just for people pleasing, or am I actually like, is this a mutual healthy relationship? And just looking in at boundaries on my part where I overgive, or underreceive, and asking for what I need. And so I just appreciate you talking about also radical honesty in your friendships, and nurturing, like spending more time with those people that are feeding your soul.
Yeah.
Too.
And I think
And with yourself, like all the time you talk about taking with yourself. I think that's really beautiful.
and you said something there, which is asking for what you need. And I think one of the biggest things is admitting that you have needs. And that because that's in the journey of the last 5 years for me, is just like admitting that I have needs. And nonviolent communication has helped a lot with that, because it's a language that, okay, let me say this differently. It's let's say it's a strategy of seeing other people more for what needs they have that they're trying to meet in the moment, rather than whether they're right or wrong or good or bad or whatever. So it's like a little kid. A little kid might need attention, but the only way that they've learned to get attention is through acting out. And so if you can realize, like, wow, this kid just needs attention right now, and you can teach him other ways of getting attention, or teach her other ways of getting attention that are more healthy. Like, hey, if you ever like really just want like attention, or you want to be noticed, like just raise your hand and say, hey, look, I got something I want to show you, or do you have a second? I want to show you something. Um, or like sometimes you have a need for connection, or a need to be heard or understood, or a need to be seen, or a need for community, or for contribution, or for, and that's one. Like you'll see sometimes the people that are the most annoying, that you're like, when are you going to shut up, when you're working on something in a group with them, really they just have a need for contribution. They just don't know how to get that need met in a way that looks good to others. So instead they just always offer feedback or advice, or they're talking, or you're just like, sometimes they just stopping and saying like, hey, that's awesome. And when you realize what their need is, you can give them a role to play that then is beneficial for everyone. That way they're not just trying to get their need met, like kind of like a person with a hammer, where they're just smacking everything, just trying to make it happen.
And you're like, oh no, if you just can use that and just hammer these nails, it'll be perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just
I think about it like I sometimes I have a friend I compare to like one of those really brilliant dogs. It's like the smarter the dog. I used to work with dogs as a dog walker and trainer in New York City, and I noticed like the smarter to the dog, the more they needed a task, and if they didn't, they would just destroy everything. And I used to be able to relate to that. Like when I met my wife, I was like, you're like this really smart dog that just like needs like something to go for, just destroy everything. And I was like, and I relate to that.
yeah. Yeah.
And like relearning to be kind to ourselves, and use that energy also to put into nurturing ourselves, not just always outward as well. I
Yeah.
love the distinction of a contributor, like someone who likes to contribute a lot. I think I
Yeah.
resonate with that.
And you see so much with like a little kid when their parents are doing a project and they just want to help. And it can be annoying, but once you realize what they're doing, you're like, oh yeah, this makes sense. This makes sense. And I think it's just a good lesson or remembrance that, like, if you are a leader or in a position of leadership, and that can be like within a family, you're a parent, or you are working at a child care center, or you have a team, like, give people roles. People need roles based on their strengths.
That's great. Yeah, that's good advice. Um,
I go back a second and just tell people, when you do this, I feel loved, or when you do this, I feel valued, or this is a way that you can support me. And it doesn't have to sound like that boom, but like just like, oh yeah, bro, I really love when you just take a second, I can talk things through with you. You're instantly giving them a role that they can play in your friendship that contributes to your well-being. And it's like just teaching people how you want to be treated.
That's so beautiful, Ben. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I've got a few closing questions for you.
Oh,
I've already asked you a couple of them. The last ones are, if your life was a film, a Hollywood movie, what would you name it?
thinking. I'm just sitting
I
here.
know. I love watching. I love watching your brain
Uh,
go for it. Whatever the first thing that hits you.
uh, hmm. Trying to make it cliche, but something about, or less cliche, but something about what's in your heart is there for a reason.
Hmm.
And I think really done a really good job of overthinking in my life and trying to get things perfect. I'm constantly reminded that when I come back to just really speaking from my heart and building relationships from my heart and being vulnerable with people, that like that's when I really see change in people's lives, or mountains moved, or things happen in ways that are so different than have ever than I've ever seen.
I love that. And what do you think the name of your movie would be if your ex-girlfriend titled it?
Chasing your heart.
What's that?
What did you say?
Oh, what would the name of the movie be if your ex titled it?
Oh, if my ex titled it, gosh, that's a great question. I'm like, okay, well, what would she say? Um, Sacrificing connection for the pursuit of perfection.
Ooh, that's juicy.
Oh, like when I did a lot of times where I used work as a measure of success and getting love and being the best at things. So I'm just grateful that she put up with me as long as she did, and that she was gentle with me and incredibly loving and patient throughout the process of me learning to work less and use work less as a means of feeling valuable.
Hmm. And four final questions. Who would you cast as your parents in this film?
It's great. I'd say Arnold Schwarzenegger is my dad. Just like
Why
uh,
not?
that's kind of my dad used to do bodybuilding and powerlifting, and like I just think that'd be great. I think he would love it, and I think it's like Arnold has some characteristics like in the movie Twins that like relate to my dad. Not so much the Terminator, but more Twins. Um, Schwarzenegger still has enough like intensity sometimes. So I'm like, okay, that would capture part of my dad's life and story.
Hmm.
Salma Hayek, because my mom's like half Indian, so like Salma Hayek would be like, I guess like kind of convincing, but like Salma Hayek would have to wear glasses and be a little more like techie and into like a little more reserved. Yeah, so
I think
I
she
was
could pull it off. That's great. That might be a great new role for her.
good. Now I'm like really trying to think about this. Like I need to reach out to them and make my life a documentary.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and if you could give the world one gift today, what would it be?
One gift today. Um, Silence. Like, I was trying to think how to say this the right way, but um, we are drowning in information and in noise and input.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's so hard to hear yourself or to even know what's going on because there's so much stimulation all the time via a cell phone or whatever. And so I think, like, I wonder if we just shut everything off for a week and everyone just went on a week long vacation with people they loved and just like slowed down, like what they would hear and what
Hmm.
surface.
Hmm. I love that. And if the world had this gift of silence, what do you see us all doing?
Um, Initially, I see us trying to distract or numb ourselves from it because that's a lot of what we're trained to do is use food or coffee or different things to run, distract, numb. So I'd also like get rid of some of those things too for the week. I think initially it would be really uncomfortable. And I think people would have to face their feelings and their insecurities and their actual feelings of what they feel about the world, where the world's at, and what they feel about themselves and the role that they play in their community, in their life. Are they happy? Are they like where are they at? Um, I think there'd be some like, I think there'd be a lot of praying in that week. I think there'd be a lot of deep conversations with friends. I think there'd be a lot of exploration, maybe some journaling, a lot of thinking. I think a lot of things would come to the surface that there would be room to actually look at.
Hmm. I love that. And you've given us the gift of so much silence. Even in this interview today, every time I was thinking, I wonder if I'm going to edit that out or leave it in, or I wonder how many people are reaching for their phone right now to see if this is still going.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, I think I'm just going to leave it in. It's really beautiful. Um, and you're not the first person to say slow down. It's like to be still. It's really, I think that's so beautiful. It's interesting. I think the pandemic also gave us a little bit of a chance to do that, but I don't know how many of us actually stopped slowing down. But,
yeah,
we had to, things slowed down in the
yeah,
world for a little bit, maybe not on social media. Um, so
yeah,
just, I'm taking away from this the reminder to make space for that silence.
yeah,
And thank you for that.
yeah. I think this goes back to understanding baselines and just understanding that our society as a whole is probably sped up. If I had to put a percentage, I'd say 50% faster than what is natural or normal with like constant like social media or TV or even the frame rates of like movies, TV, Instagram, like things have sped up so much as far as like boom, 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 back to back. Even you look at kids' cartoons and you
Oh
watch,
my Lord. From like when we were growing up to now, I
you just,
almost can't handle how much stimulation is in it. I'm like, oh, it's like
yeah,
a sugar rush on a screen.
yes. And it's just accepting that like, this is our baseline. And so every once in a while, you're going to need some time and space to detox or to do something different or get away.
Hmm. Well, I think that's a great place to put a pin in it until we see you next time.
Love it.
Um, if is there anything that you would like to plug, tell us about, and how can we get hold of you?
Yeah, anything I'd like to plug or tell us about. So, right now, my big thing is helping men who are business owners make the impossible happen within their business. And what does that mean? A lot of men haven't learned or had a role model who is really healthy as a man. And so a lot of skills that come along with being a man have been lost. And when you see people in their businesses, a lot of their businesses are underperforming where they could be, or there's so much left on the table. So like when I come into a business, or some of the businesses I've been looking at recently or working with or helping or supporting, it's like, A, are they checking their finances? Do they have some kind of budget there? Do they have some kind of understanding of what their numbers say? And B, like, how many courageous conversations have been left unhad that they could have within their business, within their coworkers, their employees, their clients? How much are they appreciating, valuing, loving the people around them? How much are they not being hard on themselves and just like actually enjoying the process? And when you bring all this in, and work starts to become this beautiful heart-centered place, and you start to have a little more structure, enough to where you can actually like grow it and it's stable. It's really crazy to me just watching businesses grow 30-40% in 3 months. And it's so much just teaching people, like, these are some of the basic skills that fathers used to teach that aren't being taught much anymore, unless you had like some kind of male role model. So that's mainly my goal, is to really help men build these incredible places where work and business gets to be this place of love and healing, and people pursuing their dreams and feeling valued, and putting their employees in situations where they really feel like they get to bring their gifts to life. And that's what's important to me. So that's what I've been working on recently. That's what I do. Yeah. And how do
Awesome.
people me? Ben_Steinbacher_. And underscore is that little dash that's like on the ground, or on the bottom, not the middle, not the top, but on the bottom.
Got it. I'm putting it in the notes. And I help a lot of men too, and I'm starting to look at, still so many of our followers and listeners are women. I still find men have don't have access always to reaching out, showing up to listen, to be vulnerable. What would you say to the women or non-binary out there, inside of these spaces that you're helping men around? Do you have any advice for them?
Advice as far as?
That's a great question. Well, inside of these environments of creating vulnerability and love in the workspace, what do you see? Is there anything you could offer around that?
Yeah. You're almost always going to overflow. Like, you are overflowing onto others. But whether what you're overflowing is a sense of not enough, or a lack, or an insecurity, or your voice doesn't matter, or a gratitude or appreciation or encouragement, it starts with what you're feeding yourself. And so, like, one of the biggest things I say a lot of times to my clients is like, let's stop for a second, and can you show yourself compassion in this moment? And that would be the first thing that I would say with a lot of women that are watching this is, can you really like just love and be gentle with yourself first? And then can you allow that to be what overflows onto the people around you? Because I would go back to encouraging. Is like, most men need to be encouraged. They don't need to be coached in order to really succeed and thrive. Like, do they need what I mean is, like, do coaches, people like me, like, are they helpful? Like, yes. But especially romantically or in the workplace, unless they've specifically given permission for someone to coach them, a lot of men want to be like encouraged, or want to be supported, or they're hard on themselves. They're at such a deficit And I think even, I think everyone in society, I'm not just going to say men, I think there's such a standard of like, you have to have the perfect body, or you've got to be incredibly successful, or there's like these standards we put on people. So I would just offer, show yourself compassion, be loving to yourself, and then take the time to encourage and express gratitude for the people around you. And as you do that, like your influence, the way you feel about yourself, your confidence, your value, your worth, all those things will grow.
Thank you so much for that. And I want to thank you to all the women and non-binary people listening. I've actually had some women reaching out and be like, this is awesome, but I do feel a little like I want to know like what's my part in this? How can I help support more men? How can I take care of myself in the workplace, which is already so hyper masculine? And so I think, all of us leaning into love now is such a great way, and accessing vulnerability. I mean, we're now getting paid money to teach this to corporations because they see it works. It's like you connect with yourself, you start taking better care of yourself, your business starts flying. And I love that you're pointing to that too, because it doesn't have to be separate from business. I think, the fact that we can really connect the two and they can live together and I can actually create more money. An opportunity. So thank you for that message. I really appreciate that. Before we go, are there any books or podcasts that you're reading or listening to that inspire you right now?
I'm reading The Body Keeps the Score, and a lot of drama. And I think it's a 10 out of 10 read. Like it's shaping up that way, and I'm almost like 2/3 of the way through it. It's a little bit bigger book. A thing that I would offer is that it hasn't felt comfortable to read, and it's brought up a lot of things, a lot of emotions, and I would say it's healthy. And I would also offer, maybe it might be good to have someone that you can talk to as you read that book, because I think it's going to facilitate a lot of healing and growth and change. I would say that's one. And then I usually go back to The Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath. And the reason I say that is because I think we sometimes look big picture as a society at like greatness and all these things that you have to do. And this book really points back to how one moment can completely change the trajectory of someone's life and how to create those moments. Even if it's just meeting someone, how do you meet someone and really create a moment of connection where they feel valued? Or let's say it's a child who comes from a family where no one in his family graduated, or her family graduated, or like no one in their family graduated. How do you create a moment in elementary school that forever changes their belief that they can be the first to graduate? And it can literally be a 2-hour thing. And that's what this book breaks down, is all these different moments that people have learned to create that completely change what people feel is possible, their self-value, their self-worth. And it makes being a human fun and kind of sexy when you realize how to moments that deeply connect with others and just like make the world sparkle. Great book.
That's awesome. Thank you. And thank you to everyone who's listening, who's been part of this conversation. It really is because of you that we do this, and so that we can help get the message out there in this beautiful medicine of healing, vulnerability, and responsibility. Please share this with someone who could use it today. Don't forget to subscribe. And Ben, could you take us out with a dude, you're getting well, however it strikes you? Yeah, just that.
You're getting well.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, Ben. It's been an honor. And thank you, everyone listening. Have